Praise the Lord, the Book of Esther. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus. This is Ahasuerus, which came from India, inland Ethiopia, over 127 provinces. That in those days when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan the palace, in the third year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes of the provinces being before him. When he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty, many days, even 104 days. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace. There were white, green, and blue hangings, fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple silver rings, and pillars of marble. The beds were of gold and silver, upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black marble. And they gave them vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse, one from another, and all were in abundance, according to the state of the king. And the drinking was according to the law. None did compel, for so the king had appointed to all the officers that they should do according to every man's pleasure. Also, Vashti the queen made a feast for the women in the royal house, which belonged to King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Besta, Harbona, Becta and Bakta, Sitar and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that served in presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people in appearance of beauty, for she was fair to look on. But the queen Vashti refused to command the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burnt in him. Then said the king to the wise men, which in times first was the king's manner to all that knew law and judgment. And the next unto him was Karshina, Shita, Admeta, Tarshish, Meres, Martin, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which are the king's feast, and which are the first in the kingdom. What shall we do the queen Vashti according to law, because she had not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains, and Memucan before the king and the princes. Vashti the queen had not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes, and to all the people and all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. For this day the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in the eyes. When it shall be reported, the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say, this did all the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen. Thus shall rise too much contempt and wrath. If it please the king, let the royal command from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it may not alter that Vashti come no before the king, and let the king give her a less deed unto another that is better than she. And when the king's decree which I shall make shall be published throughout all his empire, it is great, all the wives of husbands, honor both of great and small. And the same pleased the king, and the king required the word of Memucan. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, unto every province according to writing thereof, unto every people of the language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and should be published according to the language of every people. After these things did the king Ahasuerus promote Haman, after these things, from the wrath of the king Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what was decreed against her. Then said the king's servants and ministered unto him, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins and Shushan the palace, to the house of the women, and the custody of Haggai, the king's chamberlain and keeper of the women, and let their things for purification be given them. And let the maiden which pleased the king be queen instead of Vashti, and the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Now in Shushan the palace, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Zar, the son of Shemi, the son of Kish, a Benjamite, who had been carried from Jerusalem with the captivity which he carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried away. And he brought up Hadassah, Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. The maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. So it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, and when many maids were gathered together unto Shushan the palace, to the custody of Haggai, that Esther was brought all to the king's house, to the custody of Haggai, keeper of the woman. And the maiden pleased him, and obtained kindness of him, and he speedily gave her things of purification, what such things as belonged to her, and the 7 maidens which were made to be given her out of the king's house. And he preferred her and her maids, the best things of the house of the women. Esther had not shewn her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai charged her that she should not shew it. And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house to know how Esther did and what should become of her. Now when every maid's turn was come to go in under the king Ahasuerus, after she had been 12 months, according to this manner of the women. First for the days of purifications, accomplished to it. 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, and with other things for the purifying of the women. Then thus came every maid unto the king. Whatsoever she desired was given her, to go with her out of the house of the woman, out of the king's house. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned unto the second house of the woman, unto the country of Shazgaz, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubines. And she came in unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she was called by name. Now in the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken the first daughter, was come to go in unto the king. She required nothing, but would Haggai, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of the woman, appointed, and Esther obtained favor in the head of all them that looked upon her. So Esther was taken under King Ahasuerus into his house royal the 10th month, which is month Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins. So that he set the royal crown upon her head, and made a queen instead of Vashti. Then the king made a great feast unto all his princes and his servants, even Esther's feast. And he made a release to the provinces, and gave gifts according to the state of the king. And when the virgins were gathered together the second time, then Mordecai sat in the king's gate. Esther had not shewed her kindred nor her people, as Mordecai charged her. For Esther did the commandment of Mordecai, like as when she was brought up with him. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, 2 of the king's chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wrought in sword hands in King Ahasuerus. And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it to Esther the queen, and Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. And when inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore they were both hanged on a tree, and it was written in the book of the Chronicles before the king. After these things did the king Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha of the Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor him reverence. Then the king's servants which were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, so that they told Haman to say Mordecai's much stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath, and he thought scorn to lay on Mordecai alone, for they had chosen the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 7th year and the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast that is the Lord, before Haman from day to day, and from month to month, to 12th month, that is the month Adar. And Haman said to the king Ahasuerus, This is certain people scattered about and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of his kingdom, and the laws are diverse from all people, neither keep them the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business, to bring it in the king's treasuries. And the king took his ring from his hand, and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, The silver is given thee to the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants, unto the governors that were over every province, unto the rulers of every people of every province, according to writing thereof, and to every people of the language. In the name of King Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces, to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all the Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day. And even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. The copy of the writing for commandment to be given in every province was published unto all the people, that they should be read against that day. The post went out being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace. And the king and Haman sat unto the ring, but the city Shushan was perplexed. When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes, and put on sackcloth with rashes, and went out into the midst of the city, and cried with a loud and bitter cry, and came even before the king's gate. For none might enter into the king's gate, clothed with sackcloth. And in every province, where this was the king's commandment and his decree came, and it was a great mourning among the Jews, and fasting, and weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So Esther's parents chamberlains came and told it unto her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent women to clothe Mordecai, and to take away sackcloth for him, but he received it not. Then called Esther for Hathach, one of the king's chamberlains, who made a point upon her, and giving commandment to Mordecai, to know what it was and why it was. So Hathach went forth unto Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that happened unto him, and of some of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them. Also he gave him the copy of the writing of the commandment that was given at Shushan to destroy them, and to shew it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king, to make supplication unto him, and to make request before him for a people. And Hathach came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again Esther spake unto Hathach, and gave a commandment to Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever with a man or woman shall come unto the king in the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of us to put him to death, except such to whom the king shall hold of the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in on the king Ahasuerus these 30 days. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thee peace at this time, then shall the enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and the father shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? And Esther the queen, and Esther bade them written Mordecai's answer. Go gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way, and going to all that Esther had commanded him. Now it came to pass on the 3rd day that Esther put on a royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house, and the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house. And it was so when the king saw Esther the queen standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. Then the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near, that's the top of the scepter. Then said the king unto her, what wilt thou, Queen Esther, and what is the request? It shall be even to the half of the kingdom. It shall be even given thee to the half of the kingdom. And Esther answered, if it seem grant the king, that the king and Haman come this to the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther had said. So the king and Haman came unto the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet wine, what is thy petition? It shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? It shall be performed, even to the half of the kingdom, it shall be performed. Then Esther answered and said, my petition, my request is, if I find favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king, let my life be given, if it please the king, to grant my petition and to perform my request. Let the king and Haman come out to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king had said. Then went Haman forth that day, joyful with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up no more for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless Haman refrained himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and Zeresh his wife. And Haman told them the glory of his riches, and the multitude of his children, and of all things, wherein the king had promoted him, and how he advanced him above the princes and the servants of the king. And Haman said, moreover, yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared, but myself, and tomorrow am I admitted to her, also with the king. Yet also left me nothing, so long as he murdered the Jew that stood at the king's gate. Then says Zeresh his wife, and all is returned to him. Let the gallows be made 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak unto the king, that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou and live with the king unto the banquet. And the king pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. On that night could not the king sleep. He commanded to bring the book of the records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, keepers of the door, who certainly had done King Ahasuerus. And the king said, what honor and dignity had been done to Mordecai for this? Then said the king's sons, then they said to him, there is nothing done for him. And the king said, "Who is in the court?" Now Haman was come into the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king, to hang Mordecai in the gallows that he had prepared for him. And the king's servants said, unto him, "Behold, Haman is in the court." And the king said, "Let him come in." So Haman came in, and the king said to him, "What shall be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor?" Now Haman thought in his heart, "To whom was the king delighted to honor more than to myself?" And Haman answered the king, "For the man whom the king delighted to honor, let the royal apparel be brought, which the king used to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown which is set upon his head, and let his apparel and horse be delivered to the hands of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man withal whom the king delighted to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him. Thus it shall be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor." Then the king said, "Cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther had said." Then the king said, "Cause Haman to make haste, Then the king said to Haman, "Make haste and take the apparel and horse as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai the Jew that sitteth at the king's seat, and let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken." Then took Haman the apparel and horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback to the street of the city, and proclaimed before him, "Thus it shall be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor." And Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to his house mourning and having his head covered. And Haman told Xerxes' wife and all his friends everything that had befallen him. Then said his wise men and Xerxes' wife unto him, "If Mordecai be the seed of the Jew before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but thou shalt surely fall before him." And while they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlains, and hasted to bring Haman unto the banquet that Esther had prepared. So the king and Haman came unto the banquet with Esther the queen. And the king said to Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, "What is thy petition, Queen Esther? It shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? It shall be performed even to the half of the kingdom." Then Esther the queen answered and said, If I found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my love be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if I had been sold for born man and born woman, I held my tongue, although then we could not countervail the king's damage. Then the king of Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen. Then the king of Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, "Who is he and where is he? Thus presume in his heart to do so." And Esther said, "The adversary and the enemy is this wicked Haman." Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. And the king, arising to the banquet of wine, in his wrath went into the palace garden. And Haman stood up to make request for his life unto Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. And the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of banquet of wine. And Haman was fallen in the bed whereon Esther was. Then said the king, "Will he force the queen also before me in this house?" As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbona, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, "Behold also a gallows of 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standing in the house of Haman." Then the king said, "Hang him thereon." They hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for him. Then was the king's wrath pacified. On that day, let the king of Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, Jew's enemy, unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. And the king took off his ring from his hand, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther said to Mordecai, "O the house of Haman." And Esther spake again before the king, and fell all his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device that he devised against the Jews. Then the king held out toward Esther the golden scepter. So Esther arose and stood before the king, and said, "If it please the king, and if I find favor in his sight, and if the theme seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews which are in all the king's provinces. For how can I do to see the evil that will come unto my people, or how can I do to see the destruction of my kindred?" Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther, the queen, unto Mordecai the Jew, Behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him that hanged on the gallows, because he had laid his hands upon the Jews. Write ye also the Jews, as it liketh you, in the king's name, and seal with the king's ring. Whose writing which is written in the king's name, and sealed with the king's ring, may no man reverse. Then with the king's scribes called at time, in the third month, that is the month 7, on the 28th day thereof. And it was according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and the rulers of the provinces which are from India and to Ethiopia, and 127 provinces, unto every province according to writing thereof, and to every people the language, and the Jews according to writing and according to their language. And he wrote the king Ahasuerus' name, and sent and sealed with the king's ring, and sent letters by posts on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries. Wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together, and to stand for their lives, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people and the provinces, to assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. Upon one day, in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was presented to all the people, that the Jews should be ready against that day, to avenge themselves on their enemies. So the posts set on mules and camels went out, being hastened and pressed on by the king's commandment, and the decree was given at Shushan the palace. And Mordecai went out from presence of the king, in the royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. And in every province and in every city, where there was the king's commandment and this decree came, Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews. The fear of them fell upon all people. For the fear of the Jews fell upon all people. For the fear of the Jews fell upon them. Now in the 12th month, that is the month Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews, who to empower them, though it was turned to contrary, that the Jews had ruled over them that hated them. The Jews gathered themselves together in their cities, and throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, to lay hands on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people. And the rulers of the provinces, and the lieutenants and the deputies, and the officers of the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was created in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughtered and destruction, and did what they would do unto those that hated them. And in Shushan the palace, the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men, and Parshandata, and Dalphon, and Aspata, and Porata, and Adalia, and Aridata, and Parmashta, and Arise, and Aride, and Bajizata, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hamedata, the enemy of the Jews, slew they, but on the spoil they laid not their hand. On that day, the number of those that were slain in Shushan the palace was brought before the king, and the king sent to Esther, the queen. The Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the palace, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now, what is the petition? It shall be granted thee. Or what is the request further? It shall be done. Then Esther said, If it please the king, let it be granted the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also against this decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded so to be done, and the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together, and on the 14th day of the month Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan. But on the prey they laid not their hand. But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together, and stood their lives, and addressed from the enemies, and slew the foes 70 and 5,000. But they laid not their hands on the prey. On the 13th day thereof, on the 13th of the month Adar, and on the 14th of the same, rested they, and made a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews that were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and the 14th day thereof, and the 15th of the same. They rested and made a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore Jews of the villages that dwelt in unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month Adar a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and of sending portions one to another. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that are in the province of the king of Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them that they should keep these two. They should make them days of. That they should keep the 14th of the month Adar and the 15th of the same yearly, as the days where the Jews had rest from their enemies, and the month which was turned to them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning to good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they begun, and as Mordecai has written unto them. Because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had advised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast this Lord to consume them and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device that he had devised against the Jews should be laid on his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they call these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore for all the words of this letter which had seen concerning this matter, and which had come out of them, the Jews ordained and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as join themselves unto them, as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to writing, and according to the appointed time every year. And that these days should be remembered and kept through every generation, every family, every province, and every city. And that these days of Purim should not fail among the Jews, nor the memory of them perish from the sea. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, ruled with all authority to confirm the second letter of Purim. And he sent us unto all the Jews to the 127 province of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these matters of Purim in the times appointed, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and as they had decreed for themselves under the sea, the matters of fastings and their cry. And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. And the king of Ahasuerus did it tribute upon the land and upon the isles of the sea, and all the acts of his power and of his might, and the declaration of the greatness of Mordecai, wherein the king advanced him. Are they not written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was next in the king of Ahasuerus, and great among the Jews, and accepted the multitude of his brethren, seeking the wealth of his people, and speaking peace to all his seed. Thank you, praise the Lord.